The house was heavy with a stillness that felt like the calm before a storm. Mara stood before me, her silk robe slipping from her shoulders with deliberate grace, pooling at her feet like spilled wine. Her body, toned and familiar after 24 years, gleamed under the dim chandelier light. Her eyes met mine, cold as frost, unyielding. 24 years, she said, her voice flat, cutting. I've been faithful all this time, but tonight I won't be. He's coming. I don't care what you think. I'm choosing him. Her words didn't burn. They froze me, locking something deep inside. I didn't shout or beg. With measured steps, I crossed to the study, spun the safe's dial, and lifted my old Magnum revolver. Its weight anchored me, steadier than rage. I turned, meeting her gaze. If he steps through that door, Mara, there's no undoing this. My voice was quiet, but it carried the finality of a vow. Memories flickered, years of shared dreams, late-night talks, sacrifices woven into the life we'd built. Our home, a sleek modern haven overlooking the city, had once echoed with laughter, dinners that felt like love. I thought we were unbreakable. But betrayal had crept in, subtle at first, guarded texts, business trips that stretched too long, her hand pulling away when I reached for it. She thought she'd hidden it, but deceit leaves traces, whispers in the air, like smoke you can't unsee. I'd suspected for months, and where others might have erupted, I turned inward, letting the hurt sharpen into resolve. I didn't confront her. Instead, I built a silent arsenal. Nights she thought I was lost in work, I was mirroring her emails, archiving her texts, tracking financial trails. I collected names, dates, proof of her affair with Julian, a slick-talking investor I'd once called a friend. While she slept beside me, smug in her secrecy, I restructured my world. Assets moved to offshore trusts, accounts retitled, properties shielded under aliases she'd never trace. I hired a private investigator, a discreet ex-cop named Elena, who mapped their every move. Mara thought she was dismantling me, but she was clutching at shadows I'd left for her to find. I fed them just enough rope, decoy accounts, forged documents, to make them bold. Mara filed for divorce, certain she'd bleed me dry. Julian, with his cheap cologne and practiced swagger, egged her on, dreaming of my empire. I let them believe they'd won, even as I planted landmines, debts disguised as assets, properties tied to lawsuits, accounts flagged for audits. The stage was set. When Julian arrived that night, his confidence filled the room like a bad aftershave. I greeted him with a nod, the Magnum resting on the table, visible but untouched. Mara stood behind him, defiant, expecting me to crumble. Instead, I slid a dossier across the polished wood. Photos of their clandestine meetings, bank records linking Julian to shady deals, emails exposing their plan to siphon my wealth. His smirk faded as he flipped through the pages, his hands trembling. Mara's eyes widened, her composure cracking. "You thought you could take everything," I said, my voice low, deliberate. "Tonight, you lose it all." Julian stammered, offering excuses, bargaining. Mara turned to him, then back to me, fear replacing her defiance. I made 2 calls, one to my attorney, who'd already filed airtight motions, and one to Elena, who'd passed my evidence to the authorities. By dawn, Julian was in cuffs, charged with fraud and embezzlement, his bravado reduced to panicked pleas. By noon, Mara received divorce papers, precise and incontestable, stripping her of any claim to my shielded assets. Her world unraveled swiftly. Creditors swarmed, demanding payments for debts she didn't know she'd inherited. The penthouse she loved? Foreclosed. The social circle she'd curated? They vanished when the scandal broke. She called me a monster, her voice raw with desperation, but I shook my head. "You ended us, Mara. I just made sure you felt the cost." She saw me them, not the husband she'd underestimated, but the man who'd outplayed her. I rebuilt in silence. My new company, launched under a name she'd never connect to me, thrives in markets she'll never touch. My circle is small now. Elena, a few loyal friends, no one who'd betray trust. The house, once ours, is mine alone. It's quiet, no longer heavy, but serene. Mara lives in a rented flat now, her glamour faded, her choices a weight she'll carry forever. Julian's counting years in a cell, his schemes exposed. Sometimes I recall her robe hitting the floor, her cold confession. But it doesn't sting. It reminds me of the clarity that followed, the freedom of shedding her betrayal. Revenge wasn't loud or vengeful. It was patient, precise, a chessboard I controlled. They thought they'd broken me. Instead, they handed me a blank page. And I'm writing a story they'll never touch.